everyone, welcome to Life is Writable. My name is Melissa and today I am doing my April wrap-up. So this month I read a pretty hefty pile of books. I read a total of, oh my god, they're so heavy. I read a total of 8.5 books. Yes, I am counting that half because it was 300 pages of that book, and that's a pretty decent amount of pages for a half of a book. So I'm counting it. And I read a total of 3,590 pages. And I know people don't usually include their page count in their wrap-ups, but I thought that would be an interesting thing to start doing, just so I could not only compare the amount of books I read each month, but also the amount of pages, because sometimes I read some pretty long books and might not be able to get through them as quickly as like 200, 300 page books. So I thought that would be interesting to compare that month to month. So let's just get started, shall we? First book I read this month was Love Letters to the Dead by Ava Delara, and this was by far my favorite book of the month. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This was a beautiful book. I did a full review video on this, which I will link below, and there are just so many great things I have to say about this book. It's a story of self-discovery, and it's told in a way that is completely unique to any other books I've read before. So I highly recommend it. Just a quick summary. It's about a 15-year-old girl, Laurel, whose sister dies tragically, and to cope with her death, Laurel starts writing letters to dead people, dead celebrities who also died young and tragically. And it is beautiful, so I highly recommend it. The next book I read this month was Where Things Come Back by John Corey Whaley, and I also rated this book 5 out of 5 stars. This is another book that I recommend to anybody, no matter what type of books you're typically interested in. This is just a great, simple story that is told in a very unique way, and it's very unpredictable. You don't really know what you're getting into, and you don't know what's going to happen throughout the story, and it makes it really interesting, yet it's so simple. It's such a simple story. So it's only about 220 pages, so it's a really quick read. So if you've been thinking about reading this book, I highly recommend doing so. The next book I read was The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy reading this book. It was a fun read, and it was a very quick read. I read it in a day. But I couldn't really justify giving it 4 or 5 stars just because it didn't really resonate with me. I thought the characters were relatable enough, and I definitely cared enough to continue reading the book, but it just wasn't a favorite book or anything like that. It was definitely something I recommend as a quick summer read. It's a perfect summer read, and I'm excited to read the final 2 books later in the summer, preferably by the pool. And the next book I read this month was an all-time favorite. It's a reread, and that is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. I could read this series a million times, over and over and over again, and each time I'd find something new, and I would be just as enthralled. Like, every time I pick up any book from the series, it's like I'm being transported back in time to when I first read them. And it's just a really magical experience, and I love these books so much. So obviously it's a 5 out of 5 star. No surprise there. The book I read was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I love Rainbow Rowell's writing. She has a knack for writing really real characters that feel like they're in the room with you, and I think that's amazing. Kath is probably one of the most relatable narrators I've ever encountered, and I think that's amazing. And but the one thing that kind of irks me about Rainbow Rowell's books, and it's not even a big issue because I still love them just as much, but it's just her books always feel like they kind of fizzle out. Like, there's a climax sort of like in the story, but then there's a decent amount of book after, so it kind of just feels like it, you know, ends. It just ends. And I don't know. I noticed that with Eleanor and Park too. But it doesn't really take away from the stories for me because I do love them, and I recommend this to everybody. And the next book I read was Rebel Belle by Rachel Hawkins, and this book was so much fun. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It was so great. It was hilarious. I did not expect to like this book this much. And it's about a girl, Harper, who is a Southern belle. She's all about manners and, you know, being a good Southern girl, and she cares about things like student council and homecoming and being involved. Everything changes for her, though, on homecoming night when she develops superpowers and realizes that her entire life now has to be dedicated to protecting a certain somebody who she doesn't actually really care for. So this book is so much fun. I can't wait to read the next books in the series. It's gonna be so great. So pick this up. The final 2.5 books I read this month, 2 of them were a reread, and then the third one is all brand new, and I'm loving it so much, but I'm only halfway through. And that is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. I already read Daughter of Smoke and Bone and Days of Blood and Starlight, and I am halfway through Dreams of Gods and Monsters. And this is one of my favorite series of all times. I already know that, even though I haven't finished the third book yet, because this is just such a magical series, and it is, if you ever are looking for a great book to just escape in, this trilogy is the perfect series to do that with, because it's so unique and the world building is so amazing and so detailed and rich, and it's just, I feel like I can be transported to this world and everything would just feel so real. And Daughter of Smoke and Bone is about a 17-year-old girl named Karou who basically grew up with a family of monsters. The monsters are Chimera, Brimstone, Issa, Yazri, and Twigga. So they're a little monster family, and she doesn't really know where they came from or who they are, and she knows that they're hiding something from her. She grew up with them. They're the only people she knows, and she loves them, and they love her. And everything changes when all of a sudden her contact with them is shut off. So the first book is about her trying to kind of connect all the clues together to who they are, what the greater role is for her, and who she is as a person, because she always felt a disconnect with herself and what her life should actually be. And it's a fascinating story. It's so much fun. It's a little weird, but it's a good weird. It's a fun weird. I have Daughter of Smoke and Bone and Days of Blood and Starlight, 5 out of 5 stars each, and I know that Dreams of Gods and Monsters is going to end at a 5 out of 5 star rating. I just have a feeling. And I have about 300 pages left of that book, and I do not want it to end, so I'm kind of happy that it's taking me a little bit slower to get through, because it's so great. I just love it so much. I just love all the characters so much. Please read them. Please. If you like fantasy, if you like books, if you like books, just pick it up, okay? Thank you. And that concludes my April wrap-up, and it was a really good reading month. As you can tell, just about everything I read was 5 out of 5 stars. Happy reading, and I will see you guys next time.